The 2026 NFL draft is in the book. Each year, quarterbacks are drafted/hired by NFL organizations. And for the quarterbacks, it's a total crapshoot. Some of them get lucky, some of them not so much. In today's show, I'm going to answer 3 questions. Which QB drafted went to the best situation for him? Which one went to the worst? And which one went to the most interesting? This is QB Unfiltered, my take. 3 questions on QB landing spots.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up.
Okay, this is the 3rd year that I've done this, and while this year's QB draft wasn't extremely deep, it still gives us a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. So all the mainstream sports media gurus and pontificators have all said their piece on this QB draft, and today it's my turn, and this is my take. Okay, and before we jump into this, just keep this in mind that, of course, this is just based on real-time thoughts and evaluations on what these drafted quarterbacks are stepping into right now. Things can look totally different a year from now, but this is the way it stands right now, in my opinion. Okay, let's get going. We're going to start off with the most interesting landing spot of any drafted quarterback, and that is the Raiders' Fernando Mendoza, the #1 pick in the draft. And let's start with head coach Clint Kubiak. You know, he is starting his first season as a head coach. And obviously, he was the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks this year, Super Bowl champs. And he has quite a coaching pedigree. You know, his brothers are all in coaching. His dad, Gary Kubiak, longtime quarterback in the NFL, QB coach, offensive coordinator, head coach. And one of the points that I've made in this entire QB Unfiltered channel when I'm talking about coaching staffs and quarterbacks is that when the head guy is an offensive guy, that makes a huge difference with the quarterback. Okay, next is the fact that Las Vegas is not a one-dimensional offense. They've invested in the ground game, and so this is going to be a deal where Mendoza doesn't step into a offense where it's just chuck the ball every play. So he's got that going for him. But I think that the most interesting scenario in this whole Fernando Mendoza Las Vegas Raiders deal is this. Kirk Cousins is sitting there, and he's the man right now, right? I think that they see him as the man this year, which means this for Fernando Mendoza. He's going to be able to come in and learn from Cousins. He's going to be able to have time to adjust to the difference between college football and the NFL. He's not going to get thrown to the wolves like a lot of these rookie quarterbacks happens to, and they get just mentally beat up and physically beat up, and a lot of those guys never recover from that. So I think it's a scenario and an interesting scenario for Fernando Mendoza that he finds himself in, that he's going to be able to come in and ease into playing NFL quarterback. The one thing that we've got to say about Mendoza, and again, this always makes it interesting for the #1 quarterback taken or the first pick who is a quarterback, is the teams that they're going to are selecting first for a reason. And the Raiders organization has been in disarray now for a while. And they struggled last year, and it's not going to be an overnight process. The other thing that's interesting to me, I want to see if Clint Kubiak is going to keep him in the Indiana Hoosier offensive box, and I'll explain what that means here in a second, or if he's going to actually turn him loose to where we can see what he can really do throwing the football. Now, when I say Indiana Hoosier box, I've talked about this all year long with Mendoza, where it was like there were certain route concepts that Cignetti and Indiana's offensive staff just stayed away from with Fernando Mendoza. And he shined his ass off throwing the ball on the outside part of the field, right? Anything to the sideline, he's an absolute machine, but you didn't see him throw a lot of in-breaking routes, a lot of intermediate over the middle throws, you know, deep crossers, dig routes, stuff like that. And Mendoza may blow everybody's mind and come out and be able to throw every ball imaginable in your passing scheme and be a stud at doing it. That's going to be one of the things that I'm going to look for this year with Fernando Mendoza as a rookie playing for a different offensive coach. Okay, let's move now to what I think was the worst landing spot for any of the drafted quarterbacks. And I'm going to start off with an honorable mention because I sort of didn't want to take this route that I'm going to take here, but I ended up doing it. So I'm going to talk about two guys, and I'm going to list this guy as my honorable mention, worst spot to land, and that is Cade Klubnik going to the New York Jets. And the number one reason that I think that this is the worst landing spot for any one of the quarterbacks, he is going to be playing for a defensive head coach, Aaron Glenn. And there have been plenty of head coaches in the NFL that have been defensive guys that have won Super Bowls and been very successful. But I will say this until the end of time, there is a big difference for a quarterback playing for an offensive head coach versus playing for a defensive head coach. There is a difference in thought process and philosophy between offensive coaches and defensive coaches, OCs and DCs. And when those guys become head coaches, defensive head coaches have a tendency to restrict somewhat their quarterbacks. They keep them buttoned up. So we'll see how that works out. On top of that, you got the fact that the Jets are and have been a mess now for a long time. And they're coming off a really poor year last year. I think they were 3-14. Aaron Glenn, the head coach, ended up shit canning both his coordinators, bringing in an entire new offensive staff, basically. And anytime that the head coach is doing that, that's not a real solid foundation for your football team. So it's going to be dicey this year with the New York Jets. Okay, so that leads me to my number one worst landing spot situation for a drafted quarterback. And that was the guy taken with the 13th pick, Ty Simpson, going to the LA Rams. A little bit of a spoiler alert here. Ty Simpson's name is going to show up again later in this video. Okay, this is why I think it's the worst scenario for him. The bullshit started with Ty Simpson the moment his name came out of the commissioner's mouth at the draft. And that bullshit is going to continue for the entire offseason, the entire fall camp, and into this next season. Guaranteed. And I'm not going to get into, the argument that all these gurus are talking about where the Rams didn't need a quarterback and they didn't need to draft a guy with the 13th pick and yada, 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 and all that shit. Okay. What I am going to say is this: the number of challenges that a rookie quarterback has coming into the league, there is such a big difference between college football and the NFL. And if you're coming in as a first round selection and you're trying to figure out how to get your footing and play as an NFL quarterback, what you don't need is that extra bullshit coming from the mainstream sports media. And the one thing I'm going to say about the mainstream sports media and these gurus and pontificators, when these guys don't have anything to talk about with a quarterback's mechanics, his decision-making, or the little ins and outs that make a really, truly great quarterback, when they don't know what to say, then they start bringing in all the drama, nonsense, and bullshit, right? And so Ty Simpson doesn't deserve this. He's the number 13 pick in the first round of the draft. He's the second quarterback taken. And in my opinion, he was the second best quarterback in the draft. And he's getting beat up and hammered by the mainstream sports media because they think, number one, that the Rams shouldn't have drafted him in the first round. And then a lot of these guys, for whatever reason, don't think he's good enough to be a first round pick anyway. Okay, here's a little bit of a mini rant, little side rant by me on Ty Simpson and the mainstream sports media gurus out there. And I'm listening to Rich Eisen's show, and here's Mike Greenberg, who is one of the gurus that I've been talking about. And he's talking about why the Rams made a big mistake with Ty Simpson. And he talks about the normal bullshit, tired, old, archaic talking points. He doesn't have ideal QB size. He doesn't have ideal QB arm strength, so on and so on. And then he hits us with this one. He doesn't check any of the boxes in the Bill Parcells quarterback criteria list. What? I mean, come on. It takes a play-by-play guy sitting next to him on the same set, Reese Davis, to actually break down exactly why the Rams may have selected Ty Simpson, where he's talking about preparing for an Alabama game this last season, and he's watching game film with an NFL scout, and the scout says to him, you know, you just don't see this in college football where quarterbacks are changing pass protections on the line of scrimmage, and you don't see a lot of college quarterbacks out there that stand in the pocket and go through their read progressions against the University of Georgia and complete a backside dig or curl route on 3rd and 7 for a first down. Geez, Mike, I looked at Bill Parcells' 7-point QB criteria, and I didn't see anything in there about changing protections and standing in the pocket and going through your read progressions. But that's okay. You know, we're going to talk about Bill Parcells, that noted QB whisperer, and a criteria checklist that he brought out about 35 or 40 years ago. And yeah, I've looked at that checklist. It is really standard. It is a lot of stuff that goes into just normal everyday evaluation of QBs. And what you have a problem with, Mike Greenberg, is he's not 6'4" and he can't throw the ball through a brick wall. But the biggest thing is he was a 1-year starter, and that blows your mind. Now, Ty Simpson can stay off of social media, right? He can just avoid all that stuff. But you can bet your ass that there are going to be a lot of dipshit reporters that are going to be following the Rams fall camp throughout the season, and he's going to keep getting scenarios, questions, whatever is going to be thrown at him, and he's going to have to answer the same stuff, okay, for a while. And that is not fair to Ty Simpson. Okay, so that leads me now to the best situation that a quarterback landed in, and it's the same dude, Ty Simpson, LA Rams. Hands down, best situation. This is the reason why. Stable organization, stable. They were a couple plays away from being in the Super Bowl this last year. Head coach Sean McVay is a quarterback guy, right? He calls the offense. He is an aggressive play caller. He understands QBs. He runs a QB-friendly offense. What a great landing spot for Simpson. The Rams have got a roster around him of guys that can play. And I'm talking about on the offensive side, he's got some dudes at the receiver spot. He's got some playmakers, right? So this is different than Mendoza, who's going into, a suspect situation with the Raiders as far as the talent around him. Simpson is going into a well-oiled machine for the most part with the Rams. The second reason why I think that this is a great situation and landing spot for Ty Simpson is Matt Stafford, the QB, starting QB, right? Again, Simpson's going to be coming in. Stafford's the man. The Rams know that. Simpson knows that. Stafford knows that. Every guy in that locker room knows that. And so much like Mendoza now, Simpson is going to be able to come in and learn from Stafford. And he's not going to get thrown to the wolves. So McVay's a smart guy. He's a smart coach. He's going to get him reps, gradual reps, get him game reps. Nothing beats game reps, right? And Ty Simpson needs game reps, okay? One of the big knocks on him, and this is a concern, he was a 1-year starter for Alabama. He is young and inexperienced in game reps. I talked before the draft started that, while I thought he had great feet, that there were times in the pocket where he looked rushed and frantic upstairs, mentally moving around and sliding and climbing in the pocket. Experience slows your brain down, slows your mind down, which in turn slows your feet down and gets you into a better rhythm. But that happens through game reps. So he needs experience. He's green, and he's going to have time to get that experience before he becomes the man. This is a perfect scenario for Ty Simpson. So guys, we're going to see how everything shakes out. Right now, it's just all opinions and theories, and those were mine. So let me know what you think. Did I get it right, or did I get it wrong? You know, if my takes and opinions on playing the quarterback position give you a little bit different perspective on quarterbacks, then subscribe to the channel and keep watching my videos. I really appreciate the support. Okay, this has been QB Unfiltered, and remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.